So as you know, markets are closed around several jurisdictions in the world. So let's check in what's making the headlines just as we went for the weekend holiday into the new year. Kenya's inflation reported at 6.6% year-on-year for the last month of 2023. That's again 6.8%. That's a bit of a retracing in the month of November. The agri sector rebound is speeding up Kenya's third quarter growth to 5.9%. In fact, the top best performing companies on the Kenyan stock market last year, 2023, were in the agro-allied sector. And the shilling's down 20.9% and is the sixth worst performer in sub-Saharan Africa this year. And the Burundian franc was also down 27.6% last year and is the fourth worst local currency for the year 2023. Today, the BRICS, which is the Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, they're admitting Ethiopia, Egypt, Iran, the UAE, and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. There's an enlargement of the BRICS group starting effective today, the 1st of January. So let's check with Southern Africa, where the budget deficit was at about $59.2 million in the month of November. Former jobs in the country's non-agri sector was up 0.3% at the end of September. And Mozambique reporting net FX reserves up 1.5% in November to $3.07 billion. Mozambique is looking at that very huge multi-billion-dollar gas project. And Zambia's development agency says about $40 billion investments was what the country attracted in 2023. We just finished talking about Nigeria's foreign direct investment. Zambia reporting $40 billion, thereabout. Malawi's central bank has joined the PAPSS, which is the Pan-African Payment Settlement System headquartered in Ghana, which is part of the structures of the AFCFTA to easy inter-Africa trade using local currencies. And that's the fourth central bank in Africa to join the PAPSS. And ITO says he has secured major stake in Mozambique's Mazenga gas block. And that's where you see the FX for Mozambique coming through there in the show. You can see all of that. Let's talk about the founding CEO of Johannesburg-based Centurion Law Group, NG announced on Friday that he is stepping down effective today, January the 1st. In a statement released via his official LinkedIn handle, Ayuk says that the international law firm, which was the first in Africa to be listed on the German stock exchange, would now be piloted by a Nigerian-born Zion Adeoye. Joining me now for more from Johannesburg is Zion Adeoye himself, the new chief at Centurion Law Group. Adeoye, holiday evening to you, sir, and congratulations on your new position at Centurion Law Group.
Thank you. Happy New Year. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you so much. Tell me a little bit more about this change of leadership at the top of the international law firm.
Certainly, as you've said, there's a change of guard, but our philosophy, our purpose, and our program at Centurion does not change. Mr. Yu continues to be a key advisor, and will be cheering us on the work we've done on the continent. We continue to do. The young group of professionals, we have over 200 of them across the continent. We continue to do our work as before. But what is done, just shows an example for the rest of the continent on how to build the next generation to take on the reins for the future.
You spent some time at Centurion Law Group, and what have you learned so far? When did you join the law firm? How long have you been there? And then how have you prepared yourself for this new role of leadership under such an iconic leader as NG Ayuk?
Well, I joined 7 years ago. And, prior to that, I worked in Nigeria for quite a while. What I found is that Africans do not know much of Africa. And my first exposure to Centurion Law Group and working across the continent opened my eyes. And, I fall in love with the continent. There are a lot of deals being done on the continent. This is a continent where everything you do, especially in frontier markets, has significance. I'll give an example. The first time I visited South Sudan, the airport was, just a shed with very, shaky roofs. And now you have a proper airport. You have all sorts of hotel chains coming in. You see the progress in these countries, and, it excites you that the work you do is not just, it's legal practice, professional services with a purpose. And, that is the philosophy of Centurion. And that, excites me. And I'm looking forward to the future, bringing on board more professionals across the continent to join us.
Yes, so I was just asking about Adeoye earlier. Talk to me briefly about his tenure, the tenure of the retiring CEO, Adeoye, and what Centurion Law Group was able to achieve under his leadership.
Well, in terms of corporate form, perhaps retiring from Centurion Law Group, but Adeoye very well. There's no retirement there. His voice, bold voice for the continent. What he continues to do, ensure that Africans have the proper seat at the table. As to say, if you're not at the table, you're probably on the menu. So he has continued to fight that Africa, takes its proper position. I think the critical skills and critical minerals for the future are from Africa. It's important that, we take this as a challenge, ensure that we have professionals, legal professionals, tax professionals, business services that will ensure that when these deals are being made across the continent, Africa does get the right stake. And Africa continues to push and develop our continent. We must integrate. We must come together. One thing I love about Centurion and what Adeoye has done is bringing together professionals from across the continent. You have Nigerian, Ghanaian lawyers working on deals in South Sudan, in Uganda, in Kenya, and all of these professionals are seeing the continent as a whole, and building the continent together. This has an effect in the long run, that what's happening across the continent. You get more interested in this, and there's no other way to build. You cannot put a price on the ability of a young European to prospect across the European Union. But Africa, to travel from one country to the other, you probably have to wait for a month to get a visa, or you don't even get it at all. So these are things we must work on, and having an organization like this that Adeoye has built from ground up over 10 years ago is a positive step in getting Africans together.
Interesting, Zion Adeoye, that within this few years, this law firm was listed as the first African law firm to be listed on the German Stock Exchange. That is as big as you can get. You heard about companies and other services sector companies listed on the market. So tell me about how the law group performed in the past year, 2023, the road to the German Stock Exchange, and what that has brought to bear on putting a strong law firm behind deals, contracts, agreements, deals around the mining sector, oil and gas, whatever you're talking about on the African continent, supporting investments and investors on this continent.
Again, visionary, leadership, bold leadership. You talk of Adeoye, you can, epitomizes everything we all should be across the continent. Centurion Law Group has been, providing legal services that will rival any group in the world. Business support services. We've always believed that it's an incentive in country to have professionals who can guide you and hold your hand to navigate the regulatory business landscape of any country. And because that has been done for several years under, his distinguished leadership, it was only for me a natural course that, this can now be put there in the international market. And, it's getting the kind of reviews and the kind of buy-in that you would expect from that. So, again, that just goes back to the great leadership that's, is put in place, and on the continent, building the continent, that we felt that was a very good point to attract investment on the continent. And, there are several advantages to listing on the stock exchange, the visibility. Also, there's a heightened scrutiny, which international players can key in. And, that has been very useful. And we continue to see very good numbers. And we're looking to the future to see others, join as well, and we compete along those lines.
Yes, Centurion is not just a law group, but also business advisors. So in terms of what you see on a day-to-day basis, boots on the ground in South Africa with the rest of your team across the continent, so you're a Pan-African organization in a manner of speaking. How does that tell you about doing business in Africa, seeing it from the legal side of things? What does that tell you about the business horizon, the opportunities, what we can do more on the African continent, and perhaps some of the fault lines that we need to avoid?
I'll repeat myself and say the critical minerals and the critical skills for the future are coming from Africa. Think about it, the average age in Africa is 19 years compared to Europe, about 30 years, and the rest of the world. Meaning professionals, young professionals, whether they stay in Africa or they moved out of Africa, as the trend is currently, will continue to guide the future business and what you have across the world. And therefore, if you think Africa is not a good destination for investment, I think it's a very huge mistake. And I think the availability of energy is a leveler because Africa has the resources, Africa has all sorts of resources used across the world. And by the time you provide energy to drive industrial growth, I think this continent will be far ahead. Think about countries like Namibia, who previously have recently discovered oil and gas in quantities that are mind-blowing. This didn't exist before. Now think about those kind of countries, what the externality would be if they're able to put those things together and develop those countries and, have the model that you have in the UAE, for example. And this will be replicated, across the continent. And you have an African play where all Africans are now welcome to walk across the continent, to live, to prospect across the continent. The story for Africa is being told, and I feel there's a very bright future for Africa over the next decade.
Great, that's the next decade. But let's talk about 2024. What's the new horizon for Centurion Law as you take over from today as its new helmsman? I'm sure the congratulatory party is still on, but again, let's just start from your boots on the ground. First day, talk to me.
Well, I don't want to say more of the same, but the philosophy we have of legal practice professional services with a purpose that has no expiry date, we feel that's fundamental. That will continue. You see new faces, but certainly the program is the same. Heightened by excitement. New blood generally will generate some level of excitement, and to ensure that we're not resting on our laurels, we'll continue to build on everything we've done. We'll continue to innovate. As they say, innovate or die. We'll continue to innovate and ensure that Centurion stays ahead, not just for staying ahead, to ensure others are looking at what we're doing. And, also trying to compete. And that will generate, a system, professional services across the continent, which is very essential for the type of investments that will be coming to the continent over the next year. So I'll say 2024, staying grounded, and, we'll continue with our philosophy to make sure that, our practice is valuable and, is impactful across the continent.
All right, congratulations once again. I wish you all the best here flying the Nigerian flag. For all the rest of us in South Africa, Centurion Law Group, thank you so much, the CEO, Centurion Law Group. Thank you so much, Zion Adeoye. And that's your curtain raiser, a rice exchange for the new year, 2024. I am boosting them up. You do have for yourself a profitable year ahead.